Welcome back to the Advisor AI Solutions podcast, where we spotlight innovators transforming the way we design, build, and grow smarter, greener, as well as more profitably. I'm your host, Jordan Salvador, founder of Advisor AI Solutions, where we help architecture, engineering, and construction firms automate the ordinary and scale the extraordinary. Today's conversation hits close to home for every firm leader listening. Why are profit margins shrinking, even as project pipelines stay full? Joining me today to unpack this paradox is someone who's seen it from every angle. Aubrey Grant, founder of Emotive Architecture. Aubrey, welcome to the show.
Jordan, thank you for having me.
Uh, welcome. So, Aubrey, you're known for blending artistic vision with business intelligence and for helping design teams rediscover the emotive core of architecture. The human experience that drives value and not just aesthetics. Um, so, before we dive into the numbers and strategy, um, I'd love for you to maybe set the stage a bit. Could you share us how you've built your career on merging empathy, design, and performance with emotive architecture?
Oh, how did I build a career? Um, you really caught me on the first question, Jordan. Um, I think it was just by how I observed what was happening in the profession. So, um, I think one of the things that we do, and I think it's just a factor of what I've experienced, is um, we listen. And what I learned over the course of my career is that the more I listen and the more I understand what the people around me need, the better I can deliver a service. And so that's where the empathy comes from. The more we understand what the other person needs, the better we can deliver to their expectations. And it's not just for the client, it's for everybody on the project team. So be it the contractor, if we understand how he works and what he needs to be successful, then hopefully we can minimize those change orders that happen. If we understand how our engineers work and how they think, and we can speak their language a lot better, then when we're putting together the sets, we're communicating, the communication is stronger. And when we're making revisions, that's more seamless. And again, it leads to less change orders. When we're working with the city, if we understand what the city needs, hopefully it means the permitting process is faster. And so what I realized over time is that if we can figure out how to connect all those dots together in a project, then it's smoother. It's never gonna be a complete flat trajectory, but we get to smooth the bumps a lot more. We reduce the lag and we reduce the headaches that can occur on a project. That's almost expected at this point.
Right. That's yeah. Just being overall more thoughtful about the process, definitely, like you said, can dampen the peaks and lows and valleys of the timeline for sure. Um, Aubrey, can you share with us, what exactly first drew you to architecture and maybe when did you realize that the emotional side of design could be a business differentiator?
Um, well, what drew me, I am actually a third generation architect. And so my grandfather was in the profession, my dad had his own practice, and so it was, my godparents are all in the profession. So it was around me as I was growing up. I couldn't avoid it, I couldn't escape it. I thought that was my destiny. And so it became a part of my DNA by default. Um, I had a friend who went to architecture school with me, and when he saw my house where I grew up, he said, "No, I understand why you think and design the way you do." So my roots had a strong impact on how I design, how I think, and the emotion side really it speaks to who we are as people. Right? We are human beings, and human beings are by default emotional. And so I chose the term because that's what we aspire. We aspire to create designs and experiences that create positive emotional resonance with the people that engage us, whether it's the building, whether it's how you just interact with us. As I mentioned before, understanding how I work with my team is important. So the goal and the mission is to always leave people with a positive impact. If you walk past our projects, we want you to kind of pause and feel something. That's kind of where the emotion piece comes in, because if you deny that that's a part of what we do or who we are as beings, then we're selling our service and our product short, if that makes sense.
I think that's absolutely awesome. It's beyond something that's, cold and solid, where you actually bring the warmth and kindness into your guys' projects, which is terrific.
We definitely, that's what we aim to do on every project. So it's basically you chose that name because everybody in the office should understand that at the end of the day, that's what we should be aspiring to deliver for all the clients.
Right. I love it. I love it. Okay, Aubrey, so maybe let's get into it here. So you've said before the profit erosion in architecture isn't about bad billing, it's more about bad systems. What exactly did you mean by that?
Not about bad buildings, it's about bad systems. But fundamentally, I feel that as architects, we've eroded our power base, right? Um, we don't fully understand the well, we understand the value we bring, but we haven't figured out how to monetize it effectively. And so we take more of a defensive, reactive posture in our negotiations with clients instead of a more proactive, this is the value we bring, this is what we can do, this is what we think it's worth. Um, you know, And so I'm not sure if I'm answering your question clearly. So if you want, can you maybe ask me again so I can make sure I'm capturing the question?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so maybe from your perspective, what's the real reason margins are shrinking across the industry?
Um, it's layered again. It's very competitive, especially in this market that I'm in. So if there are 100 architects in the room and they're going after a project, then somebody's going to want to undercut somebody to win the project. And I believe what the challenge that we have is that we can't see that there's more than one project that's available. There's a project out there for all of us. And we shouldn't necessarily have to compete against each other. We should collaborate with each other to understand where our strengths lie, where we can help each other so that we're not eroding our base by, undercutting the next person. So it kind of goes all the way back to our studio practice where we were very competitive in studio. Everybody wanted to win the prize, so we would do whatever it would take to win the prize. But in the world of business, it works differently. And I think some clients, and I don't really want to put down our clients, so maybe that's the wrong term. I think some people are aware that we will compete because this is a competitive economy, and they play our desire to deliver service to our clients because all of us want to deliver a good service. They play our desire to deliver service to our clients against us, and the competitive side of how we experience college comes forward, and we're not looking at the business metrics. And I think that's really what it boils down to. A lot of us don't look at the business metrics enough to understand where we're losing money on projects. And if your main concern is to win a project and you don't understand where your bottom line is, you're going to basically be delivering your service for free. The clients don't necessarily know the difference. They just know that I can go over here and I can get it for a lower fee. The What they don't know is that you're losing money. What the clients don't know is that you're going to deliver poor service because at some point, the dam breaks, you don't have enough money left for the fee. You're gonna basically divide your attention elsewhere, similar to what some people say about contractors who are over leverage or whatever, and doing too many jobs at the same time, you get less service. And then the reputation is that architects can't do what they're supposed to do. And it becomes a cyclical cycle, where it creates this downward pressure, in my opinion, because why should I pay you, Mr. Architect, or you, Miss Architect, because I know you're going to make mistakes. I'm going to go pay somebody less because you're going to make the same mistake anyway. And if that keeps happening, it becomes this reinforcing, self-fulfilling prophecy. So I think as a profession, we all just need to say, wait a minute, what does it actually take to deliver these projects? And just stick to that, right?
Right.
Eventually, the the, the playing field should level out. You can deliver better service. Everybody's happier. It actually, in my mind, if you, it leads to less change orders for the client. Kind of goes back to our philosophy again. If we deliver the service that we know we can deliver, you're gonna save money on the back end from a construction perspective because our fee is a fraction, is a small percentage of the overall project budget. But people are, the rest of the world doesn't see it that way. They're like, the architect is over here, he gets a ton of money. Meanwhile, the GC gets 500 times that amount, but they don't say the GC gets a ton of money. And I'm like, nobody really gets that disconnect. Anyway, I'm rambling. So next question.
No, I like that. But you're totally right. You know that is about being a unified force. Where a lot of industries, it is about unfortunately, it's about the race to the bottom,
Hmm.
right? And giving away your services without holding true to your principles. Um, and hopefully that's not the case ever. In the architectural build world, but there's definitely things that do need to change. I feel at least.
Yeah, I mean, it does need to change, but we have to advocate for ourselves. That's what it boils down to. And so for me, you know, one of my light bulbs went off when I realized that every other architect in the room is my collaborator, not my competition. So if I don't win a project, I'm going to wish that person success. And if they call me and I know that I'm still going to help them deliver that project, regardless, because if we elevate the profession, we all win. And that's one of my missions outside of this architecture. I want to elevate us as a profession because then we all win, and we won't be as competitive as much as the crabs in the barrel mentality that some of us have, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, Aubrey. So obviously, I love that your firm is called Emotive Architecture. Because motion actually drives perception of value. So, how do you think emotional intelligence, both in leadership as well as client relations, how does that impact profitability?
How does emotional intelligence impact profitability? In all honesty, I'm still working through that. I will say that if you lead with emotional intelligence, if your team has emotional intelligence, I believe that there's a certain level of authenticity that comes across, um, because it allows you, in my mind, to separate fact from fiction. So, one, um, if you're emotionally intelligent, you're listening better. The empathy is stronger. The ego goes away. So it's no longer you versus them, it's us. Us creates a collective where people want to be around you, they will want to work with you. It will help people look for ways for efficiency. Um, in the process of architecture, I'm hoping that it will lead to less finger pointing because that happens in our industry all the time. And so rather than looking in the rearview mirror all the time, which happens if you're reactive, emotional intelligence actually allows you to be more proactive, less rearview mirror looking, which means that you're not wasting time chasing steps, because chasing steps, looking backwards, is where you lose money all the time. Um, so we try to take a more proactive approach. We look forward, even if something doesn't happen as planned. I'd rather look towards a solution than waste time trying to figure out who caused it or why it happened. And I think that forward-looking approach saves everybody time and money, both us and both the client, because a lot of the things that we do, what it protects everybody. It protects the client, it protects the builder, it protects the engineers, it protects the city, and it protects us. So um, I can't say it's all selfless, right? If you take those approaches, you're also going to win. So that's not lost to me. And so I think that's how you kind of align the emotional intelligence. It starts again with the whole empathy piece from me.
Right. So in a way, if you were better at, say, painting a picture for a client, or storytelling, or even framing a scenario for a client, I believe that would actually elevate the perceived value in what you guys do, would it not?
100%, 100%. But you can't tell a story from your perspective.
That's
And I
right.
think that's where the emotional intelligence piece comes in. You have to be able to tell it from the client's perspective or the listener's perspective. And that's, for me, the differentiator.
That's huge, right? Being able to, hold their hand through a journey.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Okay, so Aubrey, maybe let's pivot to the what to do about it side, because that's where most of the firms do get stuck ultimately. What would you say the first operational blind spot you look for when you consult or maybe review a project's financials?
Internally, you're talking about from our perspective.
Yes, that's right.
Um, the biggest hurdle is how much time to actually allocate to a project. I would think that everybody, and I don't think it's unique to our profession, we always underestimate how much time it takes to deliver a great product. Um, of course, you wait with what someone is willing to pay for the service, but it usually starts with underestimating how much it takes. Then followed by, okay, here's your allowance, how to then effectively deliver within the allowance that you're given, right? So if you get $20 to go to the store to buy a set of groceries, you may not buy the most expensive carton of milk or the most expensive butter. You're gonna look at all the different things on that ingredients list to choose from, and figure out what works best so you can get as much of those ingredients as possible. And so I think a lot of times people are like, well, it's gonna be the best carton of milk, it's gonna be the best thing of butter, and then they miss half of the things on the grocery list because they haven't properly planned out how they can deliver for the budgeted allowance that the client or you've agreed to with the client. Because at the end of the day, it's an agreement between you and the client. So if you've agreed to this number, you have to figure out how to deliver to that number regardless, and no excuses.
Right. That's yeah. Planning is everything, right? Um.
Yeah.
Okay. So with that being said, Aubrey, in your guys' firm, how do you guys use certain tools or systems, whether it's for time tracking, project planning, or even design to fee modeling, to to mitigate some of these margin leaks?
I think a project management platform is key. Um, just just for to minimize communication breakdowns, because that actually, and I probably didn't mention this before, communication, 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 right? So what I like about a good project management platform is it increases the accountability level. Um, you know, I say that, we give you an assignment. When you finish the assignment and you hand it off, somebody needs to know you finished it so you can hand it off. And without that good platform, sometimes we miss the handoff, and then it creates the delay. Delay equals time, it equals money. It also centralizes the information per project, and as a result, somebody who may not necessarily have been on the project the entire time can know where to go to find that information. So a good management platform is key, and good ones will, will allow you to not just track the assignment, but track the time that's being spent, and manage that profitability piece within the project. Um, well, CAD by default, so we won't talk about CAD. There are more AI tools that are out there. So, I'm not going to mention the list that exists, but we know some of them. But so diving into that to help you maybe with some visualization on the front end, um, helping you with some of your even proposal writing to make it more empathetic to the listener is important. So figuring out those AI tools that exist that can help maybe you save some time. So, I can prompt it with my ideas, my outline, and it can save me easily an hour or two in refinement. And that matters when you're trying to deliver a project, especially when you have a lot of different deliverables or deadlines or responsibilities like I would have. Um, that to me is the two or three key things. A good project management software instead of time tracking over here, um, a document folder over here, the accounting over there. If you can keep it all in one place so that your team isn't going back and forth, because every time they leave the platform to find something, that's easily 5 minutes, that's 10 minutes. Before you know it, easily within the course of a day, you're losing an hour or two.
Right,
So
right.
if you can centralize the information so that people don't need to go all over the place, you're saving time in the long run.
Right. And so in doing so, by adopting, some technologies and systems, you're actually enabling, the creativity of the designs rather than, plugging up time with, more monotonous tasks, right?
Exactly. The more time we can spend being creative, the better. So I'm always looking for ways to minimize the boring stuff so we can stick with the architecture.
Right. Love it. Okay, Aubrey. So, as far as growing as a firm and as a company, what would you say your guys' biggest hurdle or challenge would be?
Um, Exposure, surprisingly. You know, there are lots of firms out there. There are lots of clients out there. We don't know them all. Um, and if they don't know that you exist, they're never going to come calling. So I think that's one of our biggest hurdles. The DC market is very competitive, so that makes it a little bit more challenging. I think there's some jurisdictions that are further afield where there's less competition. So um, the work could be shared more or distributed. Maybe not shared. Shared may not be the right word. Distributed a little bit more equitably amongst our peers. Um, I think that's the two biggest hurdles, and I would say specifically for our jurisdiction, um, there's a lot of paperwork associated with doing what we need to do. Um, so much so that I've actually started tracking, working with the jurisdiction, um, to understand how that is impacting our cost. Because going back to this story about underestimating our time, if your jurisdictions keep changing, moving the goalpost, and you're adjusting to how to that adjustment, it costs you money that you can never get back. So I think those are the three things.
Right. Well, I love how you're trying to get ahead of that. Where is it going rather than where it was. But then, as far as visibility, are there things that you guys are doing in your firm to kind of stand out more in the DC environment?
We are obviously more social media posts, just more BD, more networking, um, um, among some other things which I may not want to mention at this point. Don't want
Hey, not
everybody
a problem.
to right, yeah. But it's the tried and true, social media and networking. There's no substitution, to be honest, for shaking hands and kissing babies. Right? The more people you meet, the more exposure. the more you find, because you also have to find people that you gel with, right? Um, Not every client or consultant or you're gonna have the same resonance with, or you're gonna gel with the same way. So the more you meet people and find the people that you gel with, then you be able to create that attraction model to your company. So that's part of our pivot in the last 2 3 years to help us grow.
Right, that's huge. Okay. Um. So with that being said, what is a specific project, whether it's past, whether it's upcoming, a project that you are most excited about or maybe even proud of, that you're working on?
Okay, so as an entrepreneur, I'm always excited about the next project, right? The next project is always going to be my most exciting project. I've liked them all. I've loved them all. I would say the first project that I'm most proud of is probably our first project as a company. We met some young developers. They took a chance with us. We worked with them on the design. They took our advice into play. Um, in terms of just materials and color and exposure. And it turned out very successfully. At the time, it was maybe a little bit more controversial with some people in the office and the client, but at one point it was the city actually used it in one of their publications on good streetscape, or how how to interface with the public realm properly according to their guidelines. So it was on one of the cover sheet of one of their publications, and so I felt really good about that. On top of the fact that I thought it was a good project,
That's
so I
terrific.
would say
That
that's
sounds
probably
amazing.
my favorite. Yeah,
But I also love it, the next one.
you at some point that's just it becomes part of your DNA as a business owner.
Right. Okay. So before we wrap up, Aubrey, just one question that we like to ask all of our guests. If you were doing what you're doing now with emotive architecture, what do you think you'd be doing instead?
If I was not, um, I would be a product tester. I I love experimenting. I love trying new things. I love learning new things. And I love seeing what they can do. So in an ideal world, you send me a product, you tell me what it can do, and I'll do everything you tell me it can do, and I'll do my best to push it to its limits to understand if it's better than what you think it is or if it needs tweaks. I just that's so I'm like I guess maybe somewhat of a geek where that is concerned.
I love
So
it. You
that's
love
probably what I
pushing
would do.
buttons.
Yeah.
Cool, Aubrey. Okay, so Aubrey, this has absolutely been a refreshing and practical conversation. I love how you've shared your perspective on how things should be run from a more emotional side in design. But for those who want to learn more about you and emotive architecture, or even continue the conversation, where can they find you online?
You can always check out our website, www.emotivearch.com. We have a Instagram page at emotivearch.com, and you can also find us on LinkedIn. Just look for architecture, sorry, emotive architecture. Um, we're regularly posting blogs on the website and on LinkedIn, so you also get a sense of how we're thinking as a firm, and how we see the profession growing and moving, and how we want to position ourselves to basically serve our clients.
That's great. I'll definitely be sure to post or and pin your tags and website on our description. And now, finally, one last thing: if you could challenge our listeners this week to take one action that improves both their margins or maybe even their meaning, what would that be?
To improve their margins and to improve their, what's the second part?
Or improve their margins and their meaning, or maybe just a
And their
challenge
meaning.
in general for our listeners. Yeah.
practice empathy and gratitude. I actually learned the gratitude thing this week, but I think there's something to be said about actively listening and understanding. And so I think if you pause in the moment to understand what somebody's communicating with you, and you're clear in what needs to be done, you're gonna save time and money. A lot of the challenges that we have is because there are breakdowns in communication, and we deliver something that the person didn't want, and you have to do it over again. So an extra 10, 15 minutes just clarifying, understanding, listening carefully will allow you to deliver closer to the client's expectations, which means you're not repeating yourself. Um, I think that's my biggest challenge. I see it all the time.
Just listen carefully. It goes a long way for sure in this world. Um, Aubrey, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for being on our show today.
Thank you for having me. This is fun as always.
And for everyone else listening, I hope today's episode has challenged you how you think about profitability, not just as a constraint, but as a reflection of clarity, creativity, and also care. If you found value in today's conversation, please make sure to subscribe to the Advisor AI Solutions podcast. And of course, follow us on Instagram at advisorai.solutions. And until next time, keep building smarter, leading with purpose, and as always, automate the ordinary, scale the extraordinary. See you guys next time.
Bye.